Hi, my name's Londe Yusuf,
And my name is Reggie Williams.
and we're the co-founders of Black Film Space. Black Film Space is a grassroots organization dedicated to enhancing the skill sets of Black filmmakers and building a community of creatives. We host events such as screenwriting workshops, panels, mixers, and other events that are designed to support Black content creators.
In the next episode of the Black Film Space podcast, we interview Courtney LeMarco, an executive producer and CEO. Courtney is the executive producer of HOARDERS and the founder and CEO of LeMarco Brands. We talk with Courtney about reviving a long-airing show, starting a company, creating opportunities for yourself in the industry, and much more. And now, on to our interview.
Hey, Courtney, thanks for coming on to the Black Film Space podcast. So let's just get started and get into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the Hoarders television show? Because, it's quite a controversial series.
Sure, I'd be happy to tell you that. It's quite an interesting story. So a while back, I had an idea for a TV show. My background is in marketing and advertising, excuse me. And I was doing short form content for various clients in the advertising industry. And I had come up with the concept for a television show, and I wanted to figure out how I could get it pitched to a network. Simultaneously and ironically, I had met an individual who was teaching me about financing and television financing in particular, and how banks would finance television shows based off of production or distribution agreements. So I talked to him and I said, listen, if I can get a concept or if I can get a television to sign on to do this show, will you be able to help me with financing? And it works out well because the television network, they spend less on the show, and then I own more equity of the actual intellectual property. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody involved, and the bank makes a little bit of money. So it's a win-win for everybody involved. So what I did was I got on LinkedIn and I took my concept. I was able to get a meeting with a production company, a local production company here in Seattle, Washington. And we sat down and I explained my idea to them, but they didn't really understand the idea because it was a little bit more fast forward for them. They had done what I call old school television, traditional reality TV, which you've seen over the past 10 years. And this was a little bit more fast forward in regards to it having social media integration. It was a show about influencers and a younger demographic, and they had really not worked with that and didn't have a lot of experience in digital. So they didn't understand my idea. So that pretty much got canned. However, they had another show that they were working on, and that particular show, they had signed a deal with the network to do a new season, but that was based on them being able to pull in financing, which I thought was a win-win. And that show happened to be Hoarders. So to make a long story short, I was able to take the deal that they had signed for the new season of that show of Hoarders to the bank. The bank was able to give me a letter of intent to do a co-financing deal. And I took that back to the production company and says, listen, we've got the funds. You guys need to do some due diligence. My intention in that whole transaction was to just make a finder's fee and go on with my life and figure out what I was going to do from there. However, when it came time for them to do the due diligence, we're talking about a few $1 million here. So when you're dealing with with that amount, obviously you have to do due diligence. And when it came to them filling out the paperwork for the due diligence, they weren't able to do that. And the reason why was because their company was actually on the verge of going out of business. For reasons I'm not really at liberty to discuss, but they were getting ready to fold. However, they had signed that new deal to do a new season of Hoarders. Now, I just said on a whim, okay, well, if you guys can't sign this, why don't you sign it over to me? And they all agreed. And they set up a call with the network. They set up a call with their agent. And within 45 minutes, I convinced the network that I was capable of doing the job. They said, okay, we'll give you an opportunity. And we delivered 5 episodes to them that season. They called me up and said, we want 8 more. We did it again. And then they called me up and said, we want 8 more. And it's just been a really positive, healthy relationship between myself and the network for the past 3 years.
That's dope. That's dope.
And quite a journey.
Can you explain to us what you were doing before you run Hoarders?
So I have an advertising agency, and I was doing a lot of branded content. I was working with Neiman Marcus was one of my big clients. I was also doing a lot of work for the Department of Defense, where I actually had to fly to Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and I was embedded in their training exercises with a lot of the troops that were on special operations, and shooting training videos for the Department of Defense so they can share that with other DoD assets throughout the world and other partner countries. So I was doing media, but it was, all over the place. It wasn't television and it wasn't film. But I had always been interested in doing film. And before that, I was working at a company that also went out of business, but we were shooting music videos and doing a high-end advertisements for like Toyota. We shot Macklemore's White Walls video, things like that. So I've been heavily involved in media for most of my life. But actually before that, I was a chef. So, quite.
Okay.
Oh, wow. You had like a really interesting.
I know. It's crazy. Yeah, it's insane.
So how did you convince the network to bring you on board?
I ask myself that question every day. Honestly, I just think what I said made sense. We had everything we had a plan that we put together. And obviously, for me, the easiest thing would be to rehire everyone that had worked for the production company that went out of business. And that team had done the show since the pilot. So everybody knew the show, like the back of their own hand. And it was really, production-wise, was going to be seamless. I think the biggest challenge was to get everybody up to speed on new and more streamlined administrative processes. So I was able to convince the network that we knew what we were doing. And obviously, if you're hired by the Department of Defense, you kind of have to have things together, so to speak. They don't just hire every Tom, Dick, and Harry to do those kind of jobs. So I'm sure they were reassured by the fact that I was able to close those kind of deals and provide that kind of service to the clients that I had before. And then at the same time, they had a choice. They could either lose the money they had already invested, or they can give me a shot to recoup their investment, which they seem to think was the better choice. And here we are.
Got you. Awesome.
So can you talk a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like?
It changes every day. I wake up to about 40 to 50 emails and text messages that start coming about 5 a.m. I'm on a health kick, so I really try to get a little bit of workout in before I have to hit the office. But by the time I get to the office, I'm looking at call sheets that we're sending our crew out in. And I have multiple businesses. So the television and film is one division, but we also have a consumer products division where we have a skincare line and a swimwear line that we're launching next year. Well, actually, the skincare is already launched, but the swimwear is launching next year. And so, I'm going from handling the ins and outs of the production side and dealing with the logistics of getting our crew out into the field. And then I'm also looking at making sure our manufacturing and everything is up to speed when it comes to our swimwear line that's launching and our skincare line, and making sure that our marketing and our social media and everything is going out there. And a lot of it is I have a really solid executive team. My partner, Eric, is very crucial to what I do. I also have a showrunner named George who spends a lot of time making sure everything we do on the show is up to the network standards. So a lot of it is just coming in and having what I would call my advisors tell me exactly where we are at and what decisions need to be made. And then I come in and make those decisions. So everything can run very efficient and smooth. And, but it gets crazy, especially during this time of COVID. A lot of companies have been going out of business. We've been thriving and growing. So, it's a blessing and an honor to be able to be in this position and do what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But every day is completely different.
How has COVID affected your business and day-to-day operations?
COVID, for the most part, on the television side, It's been very tumultuous because there's no federal standardization across the country, and we shoot our show all over the place. And we also have a feature film we just finished down in Texas, and we have that we're doing outside of the country as well. So, in regards to it's made travel and moving into certain areas to shoot not a little bit more complicated, but definitely not possible. We just have to really stay on top of the mandates that change, and those can change all the time. And they're never the same depending on which county or which state you're in or which city you're in. They change drastically. And, we've had to do some things. We've increased our budget on the show in regards to having to have a medical officer on site who does testing daily, temperature checks. And when you think about a show like Hoarders, if you've ever seen that show, you realize a lot of the people that we have on that show are older, 65 plus.
Right.
They're in a high risk for their health. So we have to be extremely cautious in how we shoot it. And at the same time, we don't want to shoot a show where everybody's face is covered. So we definitely have to beef up our medical staff and just be prepared for contingencies if anything goes awry. Like I said, it's never the same every single day. There's always new challenges, but I think part of our success is being able to mitigate those challenges and come up with a solution that works. And we've been successful at doing that so far. So I don't really see anything changing.
With regards to documentary series, how do you navigate the line between, telling a story and exploitation?
It's on TV, so there's going to be exploitation, period. I think, and some of that can be in the eyes of the viewer. I get messages from people who are saying we're exploiting these people, we're doing this for profit. But at the same time, I get messages from some of the families that are involved in the show who are thankful because this person's been living like this for the past 20, 25, 30 years, and we've completely given them the opportunity to change their life. And there's a lot that goes on that does not make it on camera. Even after we wrap the show, we still provide therapy for all the subjects. We offer them therapy after the cameras leave, after all that, to kind of help them deal with the changes of having everything taken out of their house and having the mess all cleaned up. I mean, it's life changing. Even if it's a positive change, sometimes people, they still hold on to the past because that's where their comfort zone is. But, it's like when people get out of prison, the world is crazy to them and they feel more comfortable being back in prison.
Right.
It's the same mentality as a lot of these hoarders. As soon as they have freedom, they're uncomfortable with that. So for me, and then we had, I think, was it last season or season before last? We had a guy named Dale who, he was ex-military, he's in the Army. And we got the Army base up in Alaska. They showed up with like 40 troops and came to this guy's house and they cleaned up his house. They rebuilt some of his steps and everything, and they found his old Army jacket during the cleanup. And without anybody knowing, they took his Army jacket. They went and found his enlistment photos and his dog tags, and they framed it and brought it back to him when we revealed his house. So there's a lot that goes on that's not really exploitation. It's actually changing these individuals' lives and making major improvements. I can't. There's other shows where it's just blatant exploitation, and I can't really mention what those shows are, but I'm sure you could turn on some of these networks and see exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Ours is completely different from that. We don't have gratuitous table flips and people drinking and arguing for no apparent reason because so-and-so hung out too close to so-and-so's husband. We don't do that kind of content. We want to do the kind of content that changes people's lives for the better.
Got it. So there was a point where the show was canceled, but then it got revived. Can you talk a little bit about, that whole process? Because that's also something that, doesn't happen quite often with television programming as well.
So, yeah, I think I wasn't there when it got canceled. So I took over the show in season 10, which is when it actually came back. And I think what the network realized, it's a legacy show. A lot of people know about it. A lot of celebrities know about the show. There's really not many places you can go and say, hey, do you know Hoarders? And even if you haven't seen the show, you know about it or someone has spoken about it or joked about it.
Right.
It's just one of those shows that no matter what, it's gripping. It's very gripping and people want to see it. And we've been able to provide a better quality show than it has been in the past, and we've been able to do it for less than what it costs to produce because our administrative process, we've streamlined a lot of things. So that's a win-win for the network, for them to get high quality content that has it's an Emmy-nominated television show, and it's a legacy to a lot of people. So for them to be able to get a high quality content that doesn't cost them an arm and a leg is a win-win for them. So I think that's a big part of one of the reasons why it came back. And people love the show.
Right. Did you feel pressure? Did you find yourself comparing what it used to be versus where you were trying to take the show in the future when you came out?
Not at all. No pressure at all. I mean, I don't even think about that. I think about what we do and how we can be the best that we can. We use newer technology. We use better cameras, better lenses. We use a lot of drone shots. We make it more cinematic. I think just that alone brings the production value up from what it has been in the past. I think we're making it better than it has ever been.
Got it. That's awesome.
How do you cast the show? What's that process?
So we have a 1-800 number that's shown at the end of each episode, and we have a website that individuals go to. And believe it or not, I get every single voicemail that comes in and every single email that comes in from individuals who are looking for assistance on the show. And I have a casting team, and we comb through those individual submissions. And if it looks like something that would work for the network, what we'll do is we'll go out and we'll interview the individuals. We'll look for photos of some people, obviously they have a few boxes in their house, and it's something that can be done in a day, and it's not really a hoarding problem. But if there's an issue, and obviously if there's a backstory where these individuals, maybe there's been a death in the family, or there's a big psychological component that needs to be addressed, we definitely like to follow those stories, because those are the people who need the most help, number one. And the casting team looks at it, and then once we find something we think the network would like, we do a write-up. And if the network thinks, if they green light it, we try to be out there within as little as 10 to 15 days to start shooting.
Oh, wow.
Why the quick turnaround? Is that best for just storytelling purposes?
Because number one, it's very emotional for a lot of people. So some people may want to do this, but then if we draw it out, then they get second thoughts.
Right.
There's a lot of infighting sometimes in the family where the subject doesn't want us to come out, but the family really needs us to come out. And once we have someone who's willing to do it, we just want to go and get it done, because a lot of times, they'll second guess themselves. And just like I said, they're so comfortable being in that prison that given the opportunity, they'll stay there. So we want to make sure we can move as fast as possible. And there's other situations too. Sometimes some of these individuals are actually looking at heavy liens from the county or heavy liens from the city on their property because of the mess that's there, and they're against a deadline to be evicted. So there's multiple reasons why we'll try to be as fast as possible, but those would be two of the main reasons.
Are there any cases that are too extreme for you all to take on?
Yeah, and I can't remember what state it was in, but there was one state where we looked at the property, and I don't even know how many acres. There was, the trailers that semis pulled, there had to be at least 10 to 15 of those on there.
Wow.
It would have taken us, it would have been impossible. We would have put a dent, because we shoot, in a week we shoot. We would have not made any visible impact. It was so massive that we could have shot an entire season there. I've never seen anything like that. And this guy's property was just massive.
Yeah, it could have been a feature.
It was
film.
maybe the equivalent of 4 or 5 junkyards, big junkyards.
Wow.
It was huge, and there's just no way we could have done anything.
Oh my God.
That's crazy. So what was their response? Did you just say like, "Hey, we can't do this"?
Well, yeah, they were fine with it. I mean, they understood, but the network was like, "There's no way." When we thought about maybe extending this and making this a special, we were trying to figure out different ways to make it work. But at the end of the day, it was just impossible. There's no way we could have done that, and the cost to clean a property up like that probably would have exceeded what our budget is for this show. It probably would have exceeded that. So it's just,
Yeah, it wasn't going to work.
No, it wouldn't have made any sense at all.
Can you talk about, like, the landscape of, just reality and docuseries television programming, and how you guys try to position yourselves. Like, how do you, I mean, obviously the show is already a compelling concept, but, I know that reality TV kind of goes through these waves, of doing well and not so well. What do you think makes your show work? How do you guys try to stand out as well?
I think our show works because it's 100% real. We don't go in there and set up situations like 99.9% of the reality TV shows you see. There's producers behind the camera pulling strings and setting things up. We don't do any of that. What we do is raw and rugged. It's real. Um, so I think that separates it from a lot of the other shows that are out there. And speaking to the entire landscape, I think especially now people are kind of tired of fluff because of what's happening in the world and what's happening in our country. I think people are sometimes they need an escape, but at the same time, I think people just want the real. And for me, when I'm a viewer and I watch TV, I'm more drawn to real content and real lives and real stories that relate to me as an individual. So I think as a production company, what we want to do is we want to create the type of content that is relative to people like us. I'm Black. My partner Eric is Black. We've been an underrepresented community in media. So we want to do things that are really thought provoking and compelling. And really want to stay away from fluff content overall, because I personally don't think that has as much longevity overall. I think people after a while, you can only eat so much cotton candy. That's not going to sustain you. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're stuck on an island, you're not gonna be able to sustain yourself off of cotton candy. You want some more substance there. So we try to stick to things that have more substance. And not all of it is non-scripted too. We have some scripted projects we're working on. We actually have a project called Blurs, which is a play off of Black Nerds, directed by this wonderful director named Hank Bird. And that premiered on Tubi on the 13th, Tubi TV. And it's doing really well. So, but it's also, it's a comedy, and it's about an underrepresented group. When you look at it, especially Blacks in the media, a lot of times we play drug dealers, gangsters, things like that. But you rarely see the softer side or the human side, if you will. So we really want to focus on projects that kind of show that as well.
How does your role as a producer change from doing a docuseries to scripted television?
For me, it doesn't necessarily change that much, because for me, it's all about logistics, right? So I have to go over the numbers, what the production cost is, where the locations are, whatever permits and things we need, especially shooting COVID, what are the stipulations of being able to get crews out in the field. And I have a really solid team that manages day-to-day, the overall production side of it. I have a really good production coordinator. And those individuals, she'll put together the call sheet and make sure everybody's there, get the hotels and the locations and all that stuff booked, get the craft services booked. So for me, my role doesn't necessarily change. I'm always looking at the bottom line. Okay, where are our costs? Where can we be more efficient here without cutting corners? And where can we put a little bit more extra money just to kind of up the production value, whether it's non-scripted or scripted or short form or long form? My job overall pretty much is the same.
Got it.
Has having your office in Washington State presented any sort of like obstacles for you?
Not at all. We also have an office in LA and Austin. Those are smaller satellite offices. But, my agent's in New York, my manager's in LA, my PR is in LA, and we pull crew from all over the country. I mean, we have a guy in Hawaii that flies in or flew in before they did the 14-day quarantine. But, we have people that work all over the country. This is just an administrative hub for the most part. And I think as we all have realized since the past 6 months, business has to change. And having an office, I mean, we could be anywhere. As long as we have Wi-Fi and electricity, we can do this job anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, I think they made us believe that you have to be in LA or New York in order to do production. But
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle lives on a farm in Ohio. It's like
he does?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
He lives on a farm in Ohio. Yeah.
You know, that's funny because my dad talks about Morgan Freeman. He was like, you know, he lives in Mississippi and he has a private jet, right? So, yeah, no, it's true. It's
LA's
true.
2 hours away. New York, I could be there by this evening if I have to be. Other than that,
Yeah.
Zoom calls and text messages and emails does everything really good. And some interesting thing about it, some of the productions that we work on, I never even meet the people face to face.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of blurs being picked up for streaming?
Yeah, so we had this. I have to credit my partner Eric on that because he was really instrumental to having that deal put together. And he could probably give you more insight than I can, but I'll give you what I know. Hank, we have a competition called the Big Pitch, and Hank was our first recipient of that project. The Big Pitch is aimed at minorities and women producers, female producers and creatives. And through our various network partners, we were able to close a deal with Tubi to get our contents put there. As I said, it premiered on the 13th, and it really wasn't as difficult. We came to terms. It happened a lot faster than I thought it would. We came to terms, signed the deal, and next thing you know, we did a QC on the content, and the rest is history. When you're doing deals like with other companies like Netflix and things like that, it's way more difficult. But Tubi is a little bit more lenient, and the content was good enough for them to be interested. But it's very low cost for them and very low risk for them. So that makes it a lot easier for them to sign on to something. Whereas you go into a Netflix or something and you're doing a production of a show that's going to have a $8 million season, there's a lot more back and forth just to get that done.
Can you tell us more about the Big Pitch?
Yeah, so I started the Big Pitch in order to try to highlight young producers and young African American and minority producers and women producers. And what we do is when we host the Big Pitch, we will have everyone submit. There's a deadline to submit. We will review all the submissions. And then what that individual wins is a $20,000 service grant. We will help with finalize the script. We will help with casting, and we will basically package the project up. And if that requires going out and shooting a proof of concept, we'll finance all of that. Once we have the proof of concept and the package together, we take it to our agent and our management team, and we're represented by a creative artist agency, a wonderful guy named Rob Miller out of the New York office, who's a veteran in the industry. And we take it to Rob, and he'll tell us what we need to do to get it where it needs to be. And then we start pitching out to networks. And so Hank was the first individual to benefit from our Big Pitch program. And we were able to get him on Tubi, which is just the first start. So yeah, I think it's going to be a promising program as we move towards doing more in the future.
Dope. That sounds amazing.
It does. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Where can people find out more, read about it online?
So if you go to tlgmotionpictures.com/bigpitch, the Big Pitch, it's right there on our website at tlgmotionpictures.com. It's got all the information.
Dope. That's awesome.
What do you think is next for you guys? Like, what do you want to focus on based on the current climate of television and film?
We've got some pretty awesome projects that we're working on right now. We have a scripted project called Welcome to Hollywood, which is basically based on the true story of how we got into this business in the first place. It's one of the most insane stories I've ever told. Every time I tell people how I got into this business, they're like, "What? That's impossible." You go from living in Seattle, which has no one ever comes up to Seattle, celebrities. Well, they do, but it's, Seattle's not known for that. We're known for coffee, right? And Microsoft software. So going from that environment to sitting at a table with A-list celebrities in a very short period of time is kind of odd. It's kind of a different experience, and everything that goes along with that journey is very interesting. So we have a scripted project that we're working on called Welcome to Hollywood, which we think is going to be pretty successful. We're also working on feature films. So we have a feature film actually that we just finished called The Place We Hide, which is doing really well. It's going to be released here. I can't remember the exact date it's going to be released, but I want to say it's going to be December. And then we have another project that we're working on that we're going to start shooting in February, another feature film that we're working on that's going to be shot in February. So, we're looking to do features. We're looking to do a few more non-scripted projects, but I definitely want to start working on some more scripted, deep, thought-provoking projects here in the future. I think that's really good for us. That'd be really good for us.
How do y'all find projects? Are you being pitched to? Are you looking for projects? Is it being done in-house?
We have an in-house development team, and then at the same time, my agent or my manager will bring projects to us to take a look at. And we'll see if it's something worth our while, if it's something we can really sink our teeth into. It's rare that we take project because my inbox gets full, and sometimes people find out my email. I've even had people just show up at my office that want to pitch me a project. So I have to be very careful about that.
Does that work in 2020?
People do all kinds of strange things.
I know.
So and I've got to be careful too, because if I go out, especially in a town like Seattle, and people find out what I do. I went to a restaurant once and I was having a business meeting about a project, and the waiter comes up and puts his laptop in front of me and asks me to read a script. So,
wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, yo, can we get some water first and some breadsticks, man? I mean, thank you. And his laptop was like one of those old school VCRs that you have to put the tape in on the top and push the thing down. It was huge. I was like, come on, brother, do me like this, man. So we have a really solid development team, and we've got a lot of ideas. So we really want to focus on the ideas that we have internally, unless it's something that we think is very thought-provoking and compelling. Then we'll take a look at it. But it usually has to go through either our management team or our agency before we will. And that's just for legal reasons. Because the thing about it, and what a lot of people don't understand, is if someone sends me an idea, and I like to say there's no new ideas in Hollywood. There's ideas that just are flipped, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how many house flipping shows are there really? And let's not even talk about the singing show, the singing competitions. So if I have an idea, if we're already working on an idea and someone brings me an idea and I take the time to look at that concept and we don't go with it, but our idea is similar and we put that out, that person's going to come back and think that we took their idea.
Yeah.
So for those reasons, we can't just accept anything coming, and people don't understand that. They just think, oh, well, you don't like my idea, or this or whatever, but they don't understand that there's legal ramifications for doing that. Yeah. And it happens all the time. So we have to be very careful about where these concepts come from.
Well, how does a new someone, okay, let's say someone wanted to connect with you and they wanted to pitch you, what would you recommend they do? I'm pretty open. As a matter of fact, I think on my Instagram and everything, I have a number where people can actually text me. I don't want them to text me ideas. I want them to text me if they have an idea. I would be happy to have my agent or my manager look at it before I look at it. Or if they have some type of representation, it would be best to have their representation send it over, and then sometimes there's an agreement that they would have to sign saying that they are aware that we may already be working on an idea that's similar to what they're working on. So, we just got to be careful about when we're doing that. But I encourage people, if they have something, especially minorities, especially women, if they have something that's compelling, please at least let us know, because right now we're hot right now and we're doing really good work, and we want to work with really good, solid, creative people. And there's nothing better for me than to take this opportunity and turn around and flip it so other people, I got the door open, let's go. Let's run through. Why not capitalize on your success at this time, for sure?
Yeah, make my success other people's success. I think that's the way it's supposed to work.
Got it.
Can you talk more about your company, LeMarco Brands, and how that came about?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of creative ideas, and there's a lot of things I've always wanted to be involved in. I wanted to be involved in fashion. I did a lot of content, produced a lot of content for Condé Nast, Vogue, and things like that. And like I said before, Neiman Marcus, and I did a lot of work for Nordstrom. I've always been involved in fashion and obviously media. I was the guy running around with the camera before YouTube was really popular. I was running around with a camera to all these restaurants saying, you guys, we should start doing cooking shows and putting them on the internet. No one believed me. No one believed me. They were like, who's this weirdo running around with a camera trying to get into our restaurant? Yeah, fast forward to today, So what I did was I created LeMarco Brands, which is basically a holding company. And under LeMarco Brands, I'm able to open or create different various businesses in media and entertainment and talent management. So that was pretty much the goal behind creating LeMarco Brands, is to put together a concept, the television and film side, build that up, put a team on that, boom, get that up and running. Now we have Motsi Couture, and then we have Motsi Skin and Motsi Swimwear. MOTSI is how you spell it, Motsi. And now I'm in the process of doing the same thing where we're building out our product line. I'm putting a team in place to get that up and running. For me, it's about generational wealth and building a Black-owned company that has sustainability, like a lot of these titans that are in business right now that we all know of. And that's something my grandmother, when she passed away a millionaire. She had a board care home. She was from Hammond, Louisiana. And being a Black woman in those days was just insane. We're talking about Emmett Till. We're talking about all that, right? So Jim Crow, everything. She's not too far from slavery herself. For me, I figured it's something I just have to do. I have no other choice. I've been in the corporate world. I've worked for other people. I've never found freedom in doing that. So for me, this is my way of finding freedom, because obviously everything is economic these days. And for me to feel truly free and to bring other people up, I have to create a platform or a group of companies or something where people can utilize their creativity, their administrative skills, their smarts, their wisdom, their know-how, whatever you want to call it, to create opportunities for themselves within the organization. And then we just build it up and bubble. That's kind of been my dream. And, I worked for a lot of folks who didn't look like me. And I hate to say this, but a lot of times those people weren't very nice people at the end of the day and did some things that were reprehensible, and it just didn't work. So I figured, why would I spend the time and energy lining someone else's pockets who doesn't even have my best interests in heart, when I can work for myself? So that's why I created LeMarco Brands and the group of companies that are affiliated with it.
It is.
That's dope. That's amazing.
It is. It's incredible. Do you think things have improved? Because I know, like, this year in particular, everyone has been talking about biopic groups and diversity and all those kinds of things. What are your thoughts on that, and how Black content creators in particular are being represented in the business?
I think there's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's a great opportunity because people are paying attention. But at the same time, a lot of corporations are jumping on the bandwagon because it's good for their bottom line and it's good for their image. So it's a double-edged sword in regards to that, in my opinion. They want to make sure they seem inclusive. But I don't understand why it took this to do that. You know what I mean? I don't understand why it took.
Yeah, I do.
I don't understand why it took everything that happened regarding our current administration, everything that happened regarding the pandemic, everything that happened regarding Black Lives Matter and just the whole movement, why it took that for them to do what they should have been doing this entire time. So on some levels, to me, it seems a little bit fake. I'm just going to come out and say it. On some levels, it seems fake on the corporate level.
Yeah.
But at the same time, listen, if we're going to get an opportunity, let's take it. Let's take it. And it's not up to them. It's what we do with it that matters. So if there's an opportunity for us to further minorities and further individuals who have been disenfranchised their entire lives, or marginally just displaced, great. Let's take any opportunity we can to do what we can do to move to the next level. I think that's how I look at it. And it's a very tumultuous thing going on right now. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of these companies that are hiring all these people, putting people in position for diversity training and things like that. I mean, the fact that you actually have to hire someone for diversity training speaks volumes. So it's just, let's take what we can get and move with it. You hand me the ball, I'm going to run and get a touchdown. I don't care how I got the ball. I'm going to go get a touchdown, period. If it's a fumble, great. If it's a pass, great. Whatever. Interception, whatever. If the ball's in my hands, I'm going for a touchdown, period.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that 100%. And do you feel like your business has benefited from this climate?
Well, there's a lot of people paying attention to us. So in that regard, yes, it has benefited. But at the same time, I think we've been really careful. We've been very frugal and we've been very smart in how we've run the business. And we've gotten to be really good at what we do.
Got you.
So I think that has a lot more to do with it than anything else. But like I said, if there's anything else that can come from it, I'm going to take that too. So I have no complaints.
Mm. Okay.
And it's difficult too in Seattle because there's there's no black individual up in Seattle doing what I'm doing here. It's just not happening. Not at this level. It's not. So that's why every time I meet people, they wonder what I'm doing here or if I'm just visiting from LA or things like that. It's very interesting.
What are some of the challenges that you had when you first started your agency, your production companies, particularly as it pertains to making money?
When I first started, I had no clue what I was doing. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't know what to charge. I didn't have any gear. I didn't have anything. I just said, look, this is what I want to do. I think one of the biggest challenges I had was getting people to believe that I could do it. And like I was saying a little while ago, before YouTube and everything and video content really blew up on the internet, I've always had this weird ability to be able to see things before they happen. And I knew that it was going to be a point in time where people were going to be consuming a ton of content on their phones. I remember I talked to a friend of mine. I said, he had a video game company. He made video games for like PlayStation and things. I said, why don't you make games for phones? He said, no one's ever going to play a game on their phone.
Boy, was he right.
So, I'm like, really? He says, who would play games on their phones? And I remember that conversation. And fast forward to today, his company's not even in business. So I've always been able to do that. And I think in the beginning, it was very difficult for people to understand what I was saying and get it and trust me. And I didn't have any experience in this particular field on this level. I was a chef for a long time. And so I was really drawn to doing content around food. But people just didn't get it. And, we're not going to pay you for that. No one's going to do anything like that. And now, these people can't get on my calendar. I mean, and it's just because I'm busy. You know what I mean? I'm really busy. So it's just, but once people saw what I could do, and once they saw what I could do, they started catching on. And I was able to pick up some pretty solid clients. Like I said, the Neiman Marcus thing was a big jump for me because I had never worked I worked for Nordstrom, but in Neiman Marcus, and those are some pretty big deals for me. And then when I got the DOD job, that was probably one of the biggest projects I've ever done. And that was very insane. For them, it wasn't even about trust. They just were like, well, we've got the budget, come out here and do this. It's very interesting.
So how did you convince people that you are more than worthy of doing these projects and taking on certain clients and things like that?
I did it for cheap. I just said, hey, I'm going to give you a good deal. I gave them a good deal. And then they saw the quality of my work. And the quality of my work was better than what I was charging them. And I said, listen, I'll give you guys a break, whatever. And I did jobs for less than what I should have done. And they paid me. But, for me at that point, I was very green. And it was more about getting my foot in the door and proving that I had the creative ability to pull it off. Once people saw the creative ability that I could do, then they said, oh, well, this guy's actually really good. And then they started referring me to other people. And slowly but surely, I started charging commercial rates. And it's interesting, you triple what you're charging and everyone wants to hire you all of a sudden. So, if you're too low, they don't think you're good enough and they don't want to hire you. If you're very expensive, you must be good. So let's go with this guy. It's kind of what I realized, especially with a lot of these bigger corporate partners. So,
yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for me and I'm sure other creatives is trying to figure out what the appropriate amount to charge someone an appropriate rate to not sell yourself short. So yeah, that's definitely one of the tricky things when you're first starting off.
Definitely.
Yeah, a large part of your job involves delegation and, supervising and things like that. What's a huge leadership skill you've gained over the years?
Trust. You have to have people that you can put in a position and trust that they know what they're doing, and you cannot stand over people's shoulders and micromanage. You have to trust your people. First of all, you have to have good people, but and you have to give people room to make mistakes, because nobody's perfect and mistakes are going to happen. So you got to give people the room to make mistakes and hope that those mistakes aren't something that you can't recover from. But at the same time, you don't put them in a position to make a mistake that you can't recover from. But you have to trust people. And I've always had a pretty good instinct on people when it comes to integrity and truthfulness and things like that. And you gotta let people grow at the same time. I mean, my partner Eric is one of the best examples of that. He's Army Ranger, military, has a military career, but he's a great writer. We actually met at a networking event a long time ago when I was working for another company that he came to my networking event. He had really good ideas. And so when I picked up the show, and I knew he wanted to be he wanted to be a filmmaker. He is a filmmaker. And he's the first person I called. He brings his military thought process to what we do on the production side and logistics. I've never seen anybody work like that. And he gets better every time. And he's just a real solid dude. So you have to really be able to find people that you can trust and put in those positions. I think for me, that's the biggest thing. That would definitely be the biggest thing for me.
Is there anything else that you want to share about your experiences and your professional background that you think our listeners can benefit from?
Well, I think I'm the perfect example of, I grew up on welfare, Section 8 housing. I'm actually a high school dropout. I didn't even finish high school.
Oh, wow.
But I've been asked to give lectures at University of Washington and various other colleges. So that's kind of weird. But family circumstances didn't allow me to finish school when I was a kid, because it just didn't. I didn't even know where I probably met my father 2 or 3 times, and my mother, she was out of the picture for a major portion of my teenage years. So, if it was either sink or swim, and I went and got a job as a dishwasher at a restaurant, which is how I ended up getting into the culinary world. But I always wanted to be in the creative world. I think you have to just go with your gut and realize that the system that we currently in, and I'm speaking to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? The system that we currently in was never made for us. However, if you have the wherewithal and the focus and the determination, and again, the focus and the focus and the focus to follow your gut instinct and really follow the path that you really want to follow, you can utilize the system to get to where you want to go, period. I'm from South Central Los Angeles. We all know what that was like in the 80s. And when I came to Seattle, I was the only black kid in an all-white high school. Everybody thought I was a Crip and a Blood. It was crazy. I had a guy that used to go around the high school and he'd be like, yo, so I'm the white nigga. And he would say that, right? Not realizing the connotations of that, because he thought it made him cool to say that. And so, and I'm looking at these kids who are getting brand new cars when they're turning 16 years old. And I've come from government cheese and being on welfare. So that was a complete mind trip. But the thing about it is a lot of those people were very empty. I think what I went through built a lot of substance, a lot of character, and it built a lot of survival instinct in me, which is how I'm able to be successful and navigate some of these things. And I think people listening to just really realize that it is possible. And I'm not trying to be all Oprah the Secret type thing, visualizing it'll happen. You have to visualize it. It will happen, but you got to take the first step and then take the second step. And going across the room is not hard. Going across the state, that seems a lot harder. But you got to start with the room, right? When it comes to traveling anywhere, you just got to take one step. And I've been taking step after step after step. And I look back and it's amazing how much we've accomplished. And it gets me excited for what we're going to do next. But it's focus. And that focus, that sometimes means cutting off friends and cutting off family that want you to go out and drinking on a Friday night or this or that. Sometimes you just got to make smarter decisions and focus on what your true path is. And that's really all that matters.
That's true. That's true. I think it's really important to remain focused, and I'm curious. You have so much going on, and like you said, your business is booming. How do you maintain a work-life balance?
What is that? I don't understand these words you're speaking. So look, what I do is fun. I mean, it's stressful as hell. I wake up, I've got a ton of emails. Like this morning, I woke up, I had so many emails, and I've got people on the East Coast. So they're pinging me at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. And I wake up and I look at everything, and the first thing I thought, and I'm just being 100% honest, the first thing I thought this morning when I woke up and I looked and I heard all the pings going off, and I said, oh my God, I hate waking up sometimes. And then I took a shower, got out the shower, I looked at everything, and I said, but wait a minute, look at all this cool stuff that you have to do. And even though a lot of it's stressful, I know these people are asking you all these questions, look at the position you're in. That is a blessing. I absolutely love it. Yeah. Sometimes you get stressed out. You say things, or you think things, but you have to pull back. For me, this is fun. I get to travel. I get to meet with celebrities, and I went to the Emmys last year. Was that last year? I don't know. No, year before last. I went to the Emmys, and it was an amazing experience just to be around these people that I've seen on television and in films my entire life. And now I'm one of their peers, and we're having great conversations, and I'm meeting there's some really great people out there. So I'm not the type of person who's going to go to Hawaii and sit on a beach for a week and not do anything. I just can't do that. There's so much that I want to do. It's so much fun. I don't really see the need to have a typical work-life balance. Now, if this was something where I had a 9 to 5 and I went to work and I punched in at 9 a.m., I left at 5 o'clock, and I have zero responsibility or anything like that, I'm going to go and do something else on the weekend. But actually, me, I probably would still hustle on a side business. That's just my nature. But this is, I live this every day. So, I would much rather be looking over a script, redlining a script or something else than sitting at a bar talking about how the Seahawks did.
Gotcha. So you weren't joking about what is a work-life balance.
Yeah, it's just, it's amazing.
Gotcha. Well, it's amazing that you have that sort of that drive. It really works for this type of industry. It's very demanding doing what you're doing. So,
but I feel like if I wasn't built for this, I wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I agree. All right. Well, Courtney, this was great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. I enjoyed talking to you both.
Yeah.
Likewise. Where can people find you on the internet?
CourtneyLeMarco.com.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Courtney. We appreciate you being on the podcast, and we wish you more continued success.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Black Film Space podcast. This episode was co-executive produced by Gabrielle Charles and Sino Gibson, and was edited by Elon Pita. If you're interested in being part of our community and attending events, please visit us at blackfilmspace.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Black Film Space. Subscribe to our email list and podcast. All right, see you soon.